Hey. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Adult Puzzle Podcast. You know, it's the immaculate, most incredible, Mr. Incredible Lamide here, king of
Mr.
vibes,
Incredible. That's a new
king of
one.
talk, king of pod. I'm here again. Blessings to you all. And with me is the most beautiful, stellar sounding, mind captivating,
Oh my gosh.
breathtaking,
Wow, wow.
sweet sounding,
Wow. Them
gorgeous
adjectives though.
looking Lola Day.
What's up? What's up? What's up? I feel like your intros are so good. I never even
Yo,
know what to expect. You
too,
just
too,
like kill it.
too much of listening to different pods, too much of MTV, I guess. Those
Yeah.
VJs in Nigeria used to be like, they used to say the wildest shit at the
Yeah.
beginning of like shows, and you're like, how can a human being think like this? Like, it's just super weird and fast and funny and witty because I'm guessing you have to like try your best to grab an audience's attention in the first few seconds. So you have to be really intentional and witty. So they're like, okay,
Yeah.
interesting. What's he going to say next? So,
Yeah. This is why you're going to be the one that actually does shit in the entertainment industry. Yeah. How are you? How are you feeling today? How was Thanksgiving?
ooh, Thanksgiving was really, really good. I had a great time. I
Mm-hmm.
saw my grandma, saw grandpa, and I had a really amazing time, to be honest with you. I went back home on Wednesday, so the day before.
That's
I'm
nice.
back to work now.
That's nice. That's nice. Thanksgiving was good for me as well. I think everything you said, I can definitely relate. It was nice to see family and chill with them. Anything else cool, interesting happened this week?
Uh, did it? No. No. Nothing. It was just randomly okay, good week. I'm
Mm-hmm.
slowly rounding off with classes, preparing for finals. So yeah, it's just
Oh,
been that kind of week.
yeah,
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 nothing
yeah.
extra. I'm definitely low key. Class to my house to class.
Class to your house to class. That's it.
That's because I have like a study of my own in my house. So except
Mm.
I need to do some research, I could go to the library, but I pretty have a sane and quiet apartment to study. So yeah, it's that time of the semester, I guess.
Yeah, that's actually like a very great segue into the topic for today.
Yes,
So
it
this
is.
week we're trying to slow it down a little. To your point, I mean, I'm not in school anymore, but I could definitely relate that this season it
Look at
just feels
you,
like
big girl, big god. I'm not in school anymore.
LOL, I'm not in school
Sorry,
anymore
oh,
until
sorry.
a
Those
certain
of us
point.
who are students, so sorry. We're in school. Oh. As
You're
soon as
doing
she
your
said it,
masters.
guys, look at her. She was like, "I'm not in school anymore." You know those aunties and uncles. They're like, "Oh yeah, I'm not, I wish I could relate. I'm not in school anymore. So
Uh,
we peasants in school. Well, sorry, ma'am.
Nowadays,
Sorry,
you're
ma'am.
getting your masters. I'm going to have to go back and get my masters. So
Sorry,
if you
ma'am.
dip
But
it, I'm
but
running away from my problems.
yo, don't worry. The bag is compensating now. You won't feel it. Chase that
Yeah,
bag,
it
man. Chase
better.
that
That's
bag.
that's the ultimate goal. I'm trying to chase the bag so hard that I don't need to go back to school.
Funny enough, I would think I would be you right about now. But it's funny how I've just tried my best to resist chasing the bag super early
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and doing the complete opposite, getting all the would I say certifications or whatever
Yeah.
degrees early
Mm-hmm.
on. so that I can do that afterwards. Just be comfortable in my position and know that I'm not entering any class or campus or whatever. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just the fear of me not being as fresh and sharp as I want to.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I can't imagine having a family and having to take out time to go do a graduate program. Almost.
Yeah. Trust
And there are
me.
a
I
lot of
think,
them right now in my class, which is.
yeah, I think that's a very fair point because I am not looking forward to taking like GRE or MCAT anytime soon because in
Mhm.
my head, I'm just not used to that like studying mentality and
Kind of
getting into
vibe.
that.
Yeah, it's a whole
Yeah,
different ballgame.
exactly.
Trust me. Like it's
It
just.
is. It is. So I don't know. Like I said, running away from my problems. We'll see.
We'll cross that bridge when we
We'll
get
cross
there,
that
right?
bridge when we get there. When we get there. But what I was saying was, I feel like it's a good, like today's topic is actually great for the season that we're in because to your point, you have a lot of like your semester is coming to an end, so you're wrapping
Mhm,
up a lot of things, so you're doing a lot of work. And I
mhm,
think for me, just because of how things mapped out for the projects that I'm working on, we
mhm,
are hitting that point as well where we're trying to launch something and it just feels like this is the last sprint to the
mhm,
final finish line.
mhm,
um, so today's topic is going to be about work-life balance, as you already know. We haven't had this conversation before, so I'm very curious to see like what we talk about and how it evolves. But
mhm.
ultimately, we're just going to talk about all things work, life, and I guess what that embodies, because I think work life balance is very different for you, very different for me. So
Mhm.
I'll just start it off and say, like, what is work life balance to you? And what are the things that you're trying to balance in the phase that you're in your life right now?
I would say having complete control
Mm-hmm.
of personal and professional, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
that control, I'll just say it's the control. If you're in control of
Mm-hmm.
both your personal and professional lives, I would say you're achieving work-life balance at to a certain degree, because it's that control that most people don't have, because we're most people are being controlled by them. You're not in
Mm-hmm.
control of them. So
Mm-hmm.
where you would want to be as a person is to be in control of them. You can dictate the pace, you can slow down, you can raise it up if you're in the mood, if you think you can take on more, you can attend to stuff when you need to. But when they dictate the terms for you, and when I say they, I mean your professional and your personal life, you feel overwhelmed, and yep, you're definitely not having balance there. So just being in control, I would say control, that's it to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. I think that's very true and that's very fair. What are the things, so you said personal and professional, and I feel like those are general terms. What are the things that embody that? Like what are the things that you're typically trying to balance within those two buckets?
I would say my faith, my
Mhm.
relationships, adulting, which is part of what, because we're tackling that aspect, which is why we started this podcast in a way.
Yeah.
Adulting as a person, growing, um, corporate life, work politics, if any, uh, professional growth,
Yeah.
um, also just human socialization in general. Like, so there's some random situations that just throw you off. Well, whether you get, like, watching the news alone makes you question, humanity and the kind of decisions you make further. Like, do I bring kids into this kind of world, that kind of thing? Whether
Mhm.
I send my kids to school, this so and so stuff is happening. So yeah, I would say my faith, my relationships, you know, um, work politics, if any, my professional growth, family, yo,
Mhm.
yo. family. Don't even get me started. But yeah, all
Yeah.
those I think are like major segments or aspects of my life that I juggle every day, every year. Intense,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's it. That's it.
If there's one thing in my life that I've struggled in my like early adulthood, it's this, like having work and life balance. And how I would describe it for me is like trying to your point, like trying to find balance in like several aspects of your life, if it's professional, personal. However, the reason why I struggled is whenever I thought about that, like finding the balance, it was kind of okay, I need to be putting in like 25% of my time here, 25% of my time here, 25% of my time here, 25% of my time. And I think over time I realized that that's unattainable, and like work life balance for me and what I needed to get to like a healthy state for myself was not necessarily trying to strive for like equilibrium. So when I said 25 here, 25 here, 25 here, 25 here,
Hmm.
um and that was really hard for me because like I can tend to be that type of person where it's like I want to spread my eggs like equally and do everything well.
Hmm.
And just realizing that there's no such thing as the perfect balance, because when you hear balance, like you automatically think, you know, you're trying to get to an equal state, right?
Hmm.
And I think with work life balance, that balance itself is not necessarily for all the different aspects of your of like the things that you're trying to balance, which I'll get to in a second. It's mostly like a balance for yourself, like a healthy state of mind that is balanced. Like you're not too anxious, you're not too like excited, you're not too, just that emotional well-being and healthy place of mind.
Hmm.
um I think the other thing that's really important, which this hit me, my toughest year I think was 2018. This hit me, I want to say 2019, 2020, when I realized that there was nothing like the right balance. um and like I said, this is something that I struggle with because it's still something that I have to remind myself, like it's okay if you have a shitty week with family, for example. Like it's okay if you're not the best family member this week, but you make up for it next week. But instead of trying to strive for that like equilibrium of like trying to be the best in every single thing, what I should try to do is strive for harmony. And this just means like constantly tweaking things just to make sure that you're in sync with your own personal like healthy state of mind. So ultimately that's what I want work life balance to be for me, like finding that right harmony of all the different things I'm trying to balance. I don't think I'm there yet because I still struggle, and I guess that's what makes it a harmony, because some days are going to be better than the other. But the things that I usually try to balance is everything you said, work, you know, at some point work was school, but now it's like working to make a living, like trying to make money. And, it's not just for the money, it's my passion and things like that. Definitely like spirituality, a relationship with God, um, family time, as you mentioned, passions like side projects. For example, this thing that we're doing, I know
Hmm.
that like we don't make money from this, like, but it's something that we've prioritized in our lives that is
True.
important, and we do try to balance it amongst like the other things, and it's important. It gives us that peace of mind and happiness and all of that. So
Hmm.
side projects, friendships, relationships, romantic relationships. um yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh,
definitely agree
and
with you. Oh, and what?
yeah, I was gonna say the last thing that I think is very big is well-being, and I think everything feeds into that. So well-being meaning like mental health, if that's like going on a vacation to clear your mind, just that overall like well-being, physical, mentally, emotionally, and all of that. Like putting that as a priority as well.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you when you said that equilibrium might not necessarily be like balance in the real sense with like work life balance. What I
Mhm.
mean is it's not a it's not compulsory that it should be like an equal 25 25
Mhm.
25 25. Like there are some things that can be 10 and
Yeah.
give the maximum efficiency or output for that 10, you know.
Yeah,
Another can be
exactly.
30, another can be, it still balances out, but it doesn't have to
Mhm.
be like equal, you know. So
Yeah,
that was a
exactly.
really, really, really good point. Harmony should be more like at the end of the day, does it all fit, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah, so that definitely does make a lot of sense to me. I'm guessing what I want to know now is, you know, when is it healthy and when is it unhealthy? You know, when work
Mm,
life balance is come into question, like, you
yeah.
know.
I'll speak for myself. So I know my unhealthy and yeah, unhealthy and healthy traits. I think the biggest unhealthy trait I have is like setting boundaries and setting boundaries in the sense that like sometimes I can feel like I can do it all and I overwhelm myself. And I think this we spoke about this in the stress episode, so
Hmm.
there might be similarities here. But um, I think that's quite unhealthy for me, and maybe other people might relate. Where instead of saying, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I can't handle this week," you kind of think about it like, "Oh, you know what? Let me just add this on. It shouldn't take extra time." But back to the point of efficiency, when the time now comes around, you find that you're spreading yourself so thin that you're not even doing the things that you want to do well. It's like you're half-assing everything.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's quite unhealthy because there's some times where you just need to push back and say, "Hey, I can't handle this." And even at work, right? You know, if somebody hits you up by 4:45 to say, "Can you help me do this?" Like just say something like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I need to step out for a family thing," instead of being like, "Oh, you know what? I want to help them and like not look bad and stuff like that." So for me, unhealthy, I think it's not setting certain boundaries. And this applies to like different parts, right? Like work, sometimes with friendships, sometimes with like family. Yeah, just not setting certain boundaries. Healthy work life balance, I think, is being aware of like when you're doing too less or too much and being able to reassess. So kind of having like your own individual balance compass. And to our point before, it's not like a compass that's gauging for, is this 25, is this 25, is it 25? But you know how there are just sometimes where you know you're doing too much of something and you know
Hmm.
you're doing too less of something, right? Like you haven't checked in on your family members that are going through a tough time. Like, something in your head might be like, you should. Don't ignore that thing, like check in on that person or whatever. Or with work, if you feel like you're doing the most and like, you're maybe you don't feel like it, but your body is showing you signs that you're stressed out, maybe take step backs, but just be able to pick up on your own personal cues that tell you you're doing too much or too less of something and recalibrate your compass. I think that's a very, very healthy trait to have to make like your work life balance healthy because ultimately you're able to kind of constantly shift the harmony and constantly like readjust the skill of like finding the right balance for yourself. How about
Hmm.
you? What do you think?
I'll start with unhealthy and
Hmm.
kind of is what you said, but I'm a very non-confrontational person. So I tend to accept
Yeah.
a whole lot of stuff and say yes to a whole lot of stuff that I don't necessarily agree with,
Yeah.
just to avoid confrontation, you know.
Hmm.
So whether that is taking on more tasks or,
Hmm.
you know, doing something that you don't necessarily agree with. Of course, not
Mhm.
morally um intrusive, but I mean in
Mhm.
terms of like stuff that I could easily maybe simply put a very plain example would be mm, imagine I didn't want to go out for instance and
Mhm.
you know maybe everyone was going out and because I didn't want to be like the killjoy. I'm like, okay, fine,
Mhm.
let's go, that kind of thing. I mean, if I'm tired and I want to be home and chill, I should be able to say that. But natural Lamide would be like, okay, fine, let's go, that kind of thing. But yeah, that might not be true all the time, but I'm just trying to give like a really simple example of what I mean. So that, that is unhealthy to a certain degree. And healthy would be, communication, I think,
Mhm.
Uh, I definitely sometimes think that saying things at the right time, the right way, can
Mhm.
help you get ahead
I
of a
agree.
whole lot, so a whole lot of stuff. So, good communication or effective communication is definitely healthy in
Yeah,
achieving, because
I
all parties
agree.
involved understand what needs
Yeah.
to be done and what doesn't need to be done and where they're at. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just, I mean, yeah. Communication is so hard, and I think
Very underrated
it's so underrated.
operation.
It's
Divorces happen because of lack of communication.
yeah.
Deals are closed because of effective communication. Like it's a
Yeah.
very, very underrated art, and
Mhm.
not a lot of people. And it's evolving too, right? Because
Mhm.
you would think that the best form of communication can happen in certain places, in only certain stereotypical places, and saying the right thing at the wrong place can be very damning, compared to
Yeah.
saying the right thing at the right place. Imagine
Yeah.
me catching you, in a bad mood. Let's say you're stepping out of something and I'm trying
Yeah.
to get something across to you. You're
Yeah.
just not hearing it because you're not in the
Mhm.
right frame of mind. I called you at a very
Yeah.
wrong time compared to I took you out to dinner and we're just having like the greatest time and I slip in the same conversation and
Yeah.
you're more receptive to the idea of whatever I'm saying, right? As
Right.
compared to me just
Yeah.
dumping it on you after, I don't know.
Yeah. That's a very good point because I think you're so right. Like, communication is not just the words that are coming out of your mouth, it's how you deliver it. Is it the right time? And you have to pick up on the person's cues, like their, what do they call it? Is it nonverbal cues? Or verbal cues? I don't
Verbal
know.
cues or
Right. Like,
non-verbal cues or
yeah,
facial cues, but yeah,
yeah, like their body language, I guess that's what I'm
yeah,
trying to say.
yeah.
Yeah, you have to pick up on their body language, like, are they having a good time? Is this a trigger for them? And all of that in itself is kind of hard, and especially when you're trying to set boundaries in certain things, like, for example, at work, if you're trying to say, "Oh, no, I don't wanna do this," without sounding like you're incompetent, but also not saying yes and making it seem like you're the person they can always dump work on, right? Like, that balance. But I just had to say that because when you were talking about communication, I was like, yeah, like, it's so true, but it's also so hard. And like, these are the things that you don't realize how difficult it is until you're in a very difficult situation. And to your point, it evolves. Like, the way you communicate today to someone is not the same way you're going to communicate to another person in another day, or even that same person on another day.
Hmm.
But yeah, sorry, I digress. I just had a aha
No, I
moment.
mean, very good point that you mentioned, because it is what it is. I just
Yeah.
think communication, I've been burned
Mhm.
too many times by the lack of it,
Mhm.
and I've gained so much from the effective usage of it. So I would say, I'm privy to both sides of the coin, and
Yeah.
It's definitely something, definitely underrated. I think we both agree on that. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you identify the type of work-life balance that you have? So basically what I'm trying to ask is what type of work-life balance do you have right now?
Um, at the moment, I wouldn't say it's completely healthy
Okay.
because um I'm making sacrifices, intentional sacrifices for a certain level of result. So
Okay.
I'm purposefully engaging in that, for the greater good. Because sometimes, being comfortable or, if you want to have that balance all the time, quote unquote, you might
Mm-hmm.
just end up being average, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now
Mm,
I'm in a phase in my life where I'm purposefully like, depriving of myself of some stuff, making sacrifices and with the hopes of getting a certain result. So I wouldn't say my situation is completely healthy at the moment, but I'm aware of that. And my job, I think personally, would be that I don't wear myself out or
mm-hmm.
burn myself, yeah, burn myself out because of
Mm-hmm.
extreme measures, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but now it's a whole lot of sacrifices and trying
Right.
to trying to get ahead. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's where I
I
am
think
right now.
what you said there, I think is very important because you are right. There are times that you have to make certain sacrifices and do more of something for a longer period of time
Yes,
just to
ma'am.
get to your next step. And to your point, if you're always kind of mediocre, it might not propel you. Maybe not, but it might
Hmm.
not propel you to the point in your life where you want to. And we do have to make sacrifices. And sometimes some things have to take the hit if it's your social life for a period of time, if it's your
Hmm.
relationship life for a period of time, if it's your side projects or whatever the case may be. But
Hmm.
that's important to know. And I think understanding that you're making that sacrifices for the greater good because you do know
Hmm.
the direction that you're trying to head.
Hmm.
I think that's very important. For me, if I'm being honest right now, I do
Hmm.
think I relate with a lot of things that you're saying, where it's like I know that I'm making certain sacrifices in my life right now to
Hmm.
propel me to the point in to like advancements that I want to see myself get to for the
Hmm.
future.
Hmm.
And I think I've seen that happen because I have made sacrifices within like my career. Well, yeah, sacrifices within my career,
Hmm.
within like my life to get to certain places that I'm at.
Hmm.
However, I wouldn't necessarily call the point that I'm in healthy work life balance because I think I hit levels of burnout this year that I've never hit before. And I'm specifically from like work. So, because of how intense work got for me this year, I
Hmm.
saw the negative detrimental effects on other parts of my life. So, for example, like my health. I think just like there were times where my body would just be exhausted, like exhausted, and I would have like certain type of stress induced symptoms, and I think that for me was very concerning because it's like, yeah, you can work and work and work and like get the promotions that you want and
Hmm.
raises, but at the end of the day, health is still wealth. If you're
Hmm.
not healthy, how are you going to enjoy the fruit of your labor? Like, how are you going to
Hmm.
enjoy, to your point, the sacrifices, the things that you've been putting on hold to come back to
Hmm.
later? You might not even be able to have the chance to come back to them later, God forbid. But so that's something that I've definitely had to catch myself this year, just being like, I do understand that I'm making sacrifices, but there is supposed to be like a boundary to when it goes from sacrifice for the greater good to like a downward spiral sacrifice, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I definitely think like lately, this year for sure, I haven't done a good job with like balancing work. And it goes back to what I said earlier, where I think some of the boundaries that I did not set came back to bite me. And it was also a very, very busy period of like my work life. But I'm trying my best. Like, I've learned now, and these are mistakes that I don't want to repeat in like other periods to come. The end of this period is coming, or this period that I'm in right now is coming to an end very soon, thank God. So like I'm hoping to not repeat it in the next one. But I would say that so many things took a hit, like my health, my well-being sometimes, even sometimes I'm not gonna lie, like friendships. And it sucks because like you know how there are times where like you're thinking of a friend and like you genuinely care about them and you want to like catch up and stuff,
Hmm.
but you just don't have the time, or like the I don't want to say energy because it makes it seem like you have to put in a lot, but you just don't have that like spare breath to put in the efforts to reach out. Does that happen to you?
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah. I feel like that's
Like,
been me a lot of this year, and
hmm.
it kills me because like I feel so terrible because I know that
I was gonna
at the
ask,
end of
does it hurt emotionally?
yeah,
Like, does
it
it take a
does.
toll on you? Yeah. Okay.
It does because there are times when I'm like, "Oh shoot, I said I was going to reach out to this person," and deep down I wanted to, but because I got so carried away with like the other things I have going on, I forgot until like much later, and when I remember, I'm in the middle of something else. So yeah, that for sure. Yeah. But like I said, I think that's why it's great to have like this is literally a therapy session for me, honestly, at this point. But it's something that I do know I want to work on for sure. And obviously I'm not trying to be like everyone's best friend. And this is not for like me trying to always be reaching out to a friend, but I
Hmm.
do find myself that there's certain times where I think about certain people and I genuinely care about them and I want to reach out and like catch up and do all of those things, but I forget because of, getting carried away by other work things or just being pulled into multiple different directions. And I feel like
Hmm.
if I had the right boundary set for one thing, I would have time to put into the other thing and like have a better harmony.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Um, I'm guessing, but the truth of the matter is, I think if we all
Hmm.
had balance,
Hmm.
I'm guessing the part of maybe reaching out to a friend or whatever wouldn't be lacking. We would be fulfilling those obligations or those promises. But
Hmm.
because everybody at a certain point in time is probably having that unhealthy situation, we're
Hmm.
all lacking or short. Like
That's true. Yeah.
the people who you would think like, you've disappointed or whatever and stuff, I don't think we would be true if we said all the time too they were upright or upstanding in all areas of their lives. You know what I mean? Because,
Yeah.
you know, if they are good with their friendship circles today, they might be struggling at work and they might not even share that
Hmm.
because they're masking that part with having a good time or great time with their friends or
Always being
whatever.
out. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm guessing, we're all struggling.
Yeah.
if
No,
we
that is
if we
very true.
if we want to be real with ourselves,
Yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
recognizing it is the first step to growth, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
And that is genuinely, I think, what makes like a good friendship is because to your point, we're all going through our like different situations, healthy, unhealthy, and it's how we come back from it. Like if I were to reach out to a friend that I haven't reached out to in a while, would they be understanding or would they like give me a shit time,
Hmm.
That type of thing. Yeah. But you're right.
Are there, how do I word this properly? Are there exceptions, do you think like there's certain situations where you could be like, yeah, I could, the way I explain now because of the phase of life where I'm at right now, which
Hmm.
is like my I'm currently handling a graduate program. Um, I have a passion project that I love dearly and would put in my all into. I'm also trying to to come up with career or whatever, and all that. I'm purposely aware that I might be missing out on, let's say, investing as much in personal friendships or
Mhm.
building a social repertoire. Like, are there exceptions to the whole work-life balance situation? So when are those exceptions valid, and why would you say?
Yeah. No, I think there are always exceptions. This life is a pot of exceptions. There's not a, and the
Huge
reason why I say
photo.
that, right? There's not a one size fit all. So for us to just think that everything can be applied to every situation, I don't think that's ever going to work. So I do think
Mm.
there's huge exceptions, and I'll list some of the few I can think of, and I'm probably missing out so many. The first one I think is health.
Mm.
If you and this can be physical health, this can be mental health, this could be emotional health, like whatever it may be. If mentally you're not there, like how can you even consider the other options in your life when the center ground, which is you, is not 100, right? um so I think, or that's the first step. If your mental health, your physical health, for whatever reason, is not 100%, then there's some parts of you that would have to deplete in terms of that balance, and some parts of you that would have to appreciate. So if your mental health is not there, then you should be beefing up on things that would make your mental health better, right? If that is self-care, if that is taking time off from friends, taking time off from social media, you would be doing all of that more rather than like other things that don't help your mental health. Let's say you get social anxiety. That's not the time for you to be going to the club or to the bars, or do you get what I mean? So
Yeah, Hydra. Just
that's one.
feeding jammed right now. Yep.
Yeah. And I think so that's one. The second thing that comes to mind is like financial issues, right? If
Hmm.
for whatever reason, financially there's a struggle, then automatically you're going to try and beef up your work aspect. So like how do you make a living rather than maybe like the side projects that don't give you much money, or spending time with friends that can be costly. Like I'm not saying don't spend time with friends, but let's say you guys used to go to the club or brunches on Saturdays and it will cost you like
Hmm.
$40. Like don't do that. Like that should deplete and the other thing should appreciate. So those are just two examples, but that's just, and there's so many other things. Like if you have a family crisis, right? Then you should not be, well, typically, if it's something that you should be attending to, or you want to attend to, you would obviously be spending more time with your family rather than like going into the office. So, to my point earlier, I think there's always exceptions. And why? I think it's because that's just how life goes. Like, we never know what life is going to deal us. And I think that's why that harmony is so important, is because whenever you do have something come up as an exception, you can't try to now like still give everything the same attention. This is when you figure out what should be getting most of my attention to get me through this exception or through this challenging period. Um, so yeah, that's what I think. And I think, I'm speaking of the negative exceptions. Sometimes it might even be like positives where you have a lot of money, for example, and um, you don't necessarily have to work as much. Let's say you just won a lottery or whatever. Then maybe you now start to give your time that you would have put into work to like other things, maybe your family members who need your help, your grandma, your grandpa, like things like that. Like I personally think that's where that harmony comes in. So there's always that exception, and I think you just need to have, going back to my point earlier, that personal compass, or yeah, that compass that can help you constantly put you and calibrate you to the healthy place based on whatever your situation is at any moment.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense to me. That definitely makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Um, and just quick, I like to prick your brain on something. So, is there
Yeah.
an official hierarchy? And I'll explain what I mean. Like, is that a naturally acceptable worldwide order that you must? This is the template in terms of like priority. So, is it family first, then faith,
Mm,
then work, or is it like faith first, then family, then work, or is it work first, then family, then
then,
faith? Because
yeah.
this is our daily struggle, and I really needed to understand or know your thoughts on that. Because most times people miss church or miss prayers or whatever because of work. Oh, I have to fly
Hmm.
to Dubai today. I have a meeting. Oh, I have to get to San Diego today because there's a board meeting. Oh, I have to meet this person and, wherever because I have a meeting. I have work, work, work. Parents miss birthdays.
Hmm.
Parents miss births of their kids. Parents miss like cause they're working, you know. And on the flip side, there's some pastors or people who get too involved with, let me not use the word too involved, who get carried away with spiritual activities, right?
Hmm.
And forget or neglect their family. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So if you're a
Yeah.
pastor or whatever, it's like the congregation comes before your family or whatever, which is weird to me. Because what are you really preaching on that stage?
Yeah.
And yeah, so what are your thoughts? Like, is there an official hierarchy? Is there a way it should be, or
Yeah.
to
And
each
this
is his
is,
own?
it's so tricky because I do think it's going to be, it's probably no one is surprised, to each his own in this situation. And the reason why I say that is because there's so many factors that affect this. I think the first
Mm,
factor is your upbringing, right? If you were raised in a religious home like I was and you were, we understand how the entity of life, well, I understand that the entity of life is based on the creator, and the creator in my world is God. So that's first, right? For me, always. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I am neglecting my family for God. And the way I personally approach that whole situation is I am trying my best to live the most righteous life that I could possibly live and be a godly person. And that triggers like everyone that comes in contact with me, if it's family, friends, work. So that's kind of how it's first. It's not necessarily that um I am going on a 7-day conference and I'm shutting everybody out, like
mm,
Christian conference, right? I'm not saying that's wrong, right? Because I do know some people, based on their religious backgrounds, they might have things like that. But
mm,
this is my world, and that's how God comes first in my entity. It's understanding that in this life, we're brought to this life, but we have a God given purpose, and I'm trying to live that. And I'm going to try and share the blessings God has put in me for this
mm,
world, and that's how I'm going to try and live my life. So I personally think it's going to vary. Somebody who wasn't raised in a religious household, right, has no type of religious belief, may put family first. Somebody who, you know, for whatever reason, let's say they didn't grow up with a family, might put money first. Somebody who, for whatever reason, they grew up with their friends, or like friends has always been the constant for them, might put uh friends first. Somebody who, for whatever reason, they've grown up around like really, really bad sickness and like poor
mm,
health, they
mm,
might put like health and wellness like first. Like you don't talk to them until after they've worked out for 3 hours, zened out for like 1 hour, like, So I do think it varies, and I don't think there's a right or wrong, because like I am not in no means the like, who am I to say what is right and wrong? That's kind
Hmm.
of how I'm thinking about
Hmm.
it, right? Like
Yeah.
your reality is different from my reality. I don't think anyone's reality is better than the other. It's just what it is. But I do get your point. I
But I
think
mean, I think there are some things. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Mhm.
I'm guessing there are some things that are just wrong, right? Like if
Oh, yes. That yeah, like
you're saying you're in a meeting constantly and you're at work and you're constantly missing like milestones in the life of your kids, they don't get to see you as much, they're attention deprived in a
mhm.
very unhealthy way. I'm guessing that's just flat out wrong, right? Because
Yeah, I agree.
it is what it
Okay.
is. No,
The
I get
thing
what you're
is,
saying. I'm just saying, I just wanted to add that so
yeah.
that people didn't hear what you said and feel that's like an excuse, like a permissible excuse to just be like,
Yeah.
oh, I listened to a very good podcast called the Adult Puzzle Podcast, and this amazingly well spoken host said that, you know, to each is his own, you know, that kind of thing, and you know whatever works for you. So my work
Yeah.
gets me the, you know, financial freedom that I need so my
Mhm.
family can suffer. No, that's not what she's saying.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you because ultimately in this life,
Hmm.
as much as our realities vary, morally, and when I say, yeah, morally, as a human being, and
Hmm.
this is bringing us, stripping everything away, culture, race, uh, like religious backgrounds, da da da
Hmm.
da. Morally, there's some fundamentals that human beings should have. And
Hmm.
some of them are you don't go about murdering people. You don't go about like don't be a bad person, right? Like
Yep.
nobody needs to tell you it is wrong to see an old person walking down the road and you throw a stone at them or like something, inhumane like that. And so
Hmm.
I do think some certain things fall into that bucket. And one of them is if you are a parent and parent meaning you have children that you raise as your own because I don't think everyone that fathers or mothers a child is a parent. I don't think
I
everyone
agree.
that
Oh.
has a child should be allowed to parent because some people do not need to have children in this world. That's just the truth. And I do think as a parent, going back to what I was saying about the moral like fundamentals, like you brought a child into this world, you made a choice to have that child and to raise that child. So there are fundamental things that you should be doing as a parent, like giving your child attention, giving your child the best you can, because that varies for everyone. The best you
Right.
can might be bread and butter for
Hmm.
one person, and another person it's like gourmet whatever, and there's no right or wrong, but fundamentally there's some things that should stand. And whether or not your work, like whatever you're trying to balance varies, as a parent, be a good parent. Like and I'm saying all of that because I do think those fundamental moral compasses should be the baseline for what guides like how we prioritize, right?
Hmm.
If you see somebody dying on the road and you're on the way to work, yes, work is important and yes, you're trying to get the bag, but that's somebody's life, right? Like
I feel
in that
you. Yeah.
right, in
Yeah.
that moment,
Yeah.
are you really gonna be like, oh yeah, 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 like money is the most important thing to me, you
True.
know?
True that. True that. True that.
S- Yeah. And you know what's sad, Lamade?
What?
As much as like I'm saying, like, there are fundamental things, moral things that as human beings we should all
Uh
have.
huh.
Some
Uh
people
huh.
don't have this, and it's what makes the world a very scary place.
Scary place. And you know what's funny is you would think that those emotions
Hmm.
should be naturally like inborn. Like I don't see a kid being born. Like
Oh yeah.
I don't agree with the idea that a kid can be born with hate and spite and just evil.
Mhm.
Like you're born as a kid and you instantly want to bomb or go into a church and shoot people. Like I
Mhm.
I really can't believe that. Like I don't think any psychology research can convince me to believe that people are naturally born evil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there is a deliberate effort either by their environment that makes them that way, or people are, I don't know, but it's sad, really. It's sad because
I
you
agree
have a
with
very
you.
good point when you say that you look at humanity today and you're just like really, really underwhelmed and sad. It's
Mhm.
weird.
I agree with you. I personally don't think there was anyone that was born just to be like a flat out bad person. I think it's picked up environment, and it's crazy how much your environment can shape you
Hmm.
to be what you are. I actually
Hmm.
said this to someone a few days ago where like joke, like we underestimate how serious it is to like think about the type of environment you're bringing your kids to, like children, unborn children to, before you do so. Like, I think that's something people don't do. And I'm not saying like there's this one optimal situation to bring a child to, no. But I
Hmm.
do think there's some environments that when you deep it, you're like, this child shouldn't have been put in this situation from the start. Like, if like you see people in their 40s and their 50s and you trace it back to what happened to them between the ages of 2 to 5,
Hmm.
and it's like, damn, your environment, 2 to 5, think about it, you don't remember what you were doing 2 to 5, but there's some attributes that have stuck and will stick with you unless you do some deep unlearning, depending on what it is. um and it can affect you for years to come. So I think it's very important, before you bring children into this world, especially the world that we live in now, like really question and be like, okay, this environment they're going to come into, to the best of my abilities, is it conducive for a child or is it not?
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause-
Yeah. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
yeah, I have a last question for you. And
Yeah.
I think
Go
this
ahead.
one might be like a little bit of a catch 22, but bear with me.
Okay.
So you know how we've been talking about work-life balance, like work
Mm.
and life, and we've kind of been generalizing, work is the
Mm.
grind for money, whatever that looks like for you, and like life is like everything else that in scopes, your day-to-day life,
Mm.
and finding the balance between those two. Do you think they are interdependent or interrelated, or do you think they're not related?
Hmm.
Should I break it down some more? Do you
I
get the
think I
question?
think I get it. I get it.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the short answer will be they are interdependent.
Mm-hmm.
But they're let me just follow through with my first thought and my first answer first before I even go into the butt of it. So
Mm-hmm.
they're interdependent in the sense that um I'm guessing while working sometimes you can make lifetime friends, like
Mm-hmm.
work is what you do every day. So in a certain way, it's what you're living. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're living in that moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's your life, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But the the approach or the separation in terms of like effect on you, like how you want it to affect you personally should be different.
Mhm.
So what you take as the outcomes of those two entities should be different. Like if you have certain goals and objectives for your work, right? For your job, your professional life, whatever.
Mhm.
Whether the amount of money you want to make today, or yeah, let me even use money. The amount of money you want to make today from a deal. If that deal doesn't happen or go as planned, I don't think your personal life should suffer. You get what I mean? Like people around you shouldn't have to suffer for that. You don't have to
Mhm.
then go on a binge, lash out,
Mhm.
be rude to those in your life, be mean, or because someone, did you wrong in the office, you're going to go out of character to be mean to another person or to make sure that you pay that person back,
Mhm.
in their own coin or 10 times. You know what I mean? Like, I feel the results of uh, those two entities should be like leave work where work is. I don't know if it's
Mhm.
possible for a lot
It's
of
hard.
people. It's hard. I understand
Mhm.
that, but the ideal situation would be work ends here.
Mhm.
Uh, my personal life or whatever, is different. You know what I mean? So I think they are interdependent. Short answer, but the results or effects of both should be handled separate. Like keep
Mm.
your personal, keep your
Mhm.
work,
Yeah.
strictly work and everything. Those are my
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you. I do think they're interdependent, and ultimately we should try to keep them separate, like the results of it,
Mhm.
especially if work is not going well, but then like you're carrying over that frustration into all aspects of your life, like your family members, your kids are hitting that. And
Mhm.
I know, like we mentioned, it's hard to separate that because as human beings, like we're not robots. It's hard to like
Hmm.
shut our brain off by
Yeah,
5 p.m. and then right. It's really really hard. That
it is.
control has to come by a lot of like work and effort. So I definitely
Yeah.
agree with you. I'm gonna spin it a different way because I was actually like thinking about this and like a slightly along the line of what you were thinking too, but slightly different. I think another way to why I think they're very interdependent is I think the type of life you have. Sorry, let me start from work and it can be used both ways. The type of work you have can set you up for a specific type of life, and flipped the other way, the type of life you have can set you up for a specific type of work, and
Hmm.
that kind of
Say that
flows
again,
into
please. Say that
the
again,
balance.
please. Say
the
that again, please. I really love
type
that.
the type of work you have
Mm-hmm.
can set you up for the type of life you live or the type of life
Hmm.
you have,
Mm-hmm.
and the type of life you live or the type of life that has been um, set up for you either by your parents or your generations before you can
Mm.
set you up for a specific type of work, and
Mm.
that ultimately flows down to the balance. So let me dissect this and give instances. So
Yes, please. Yes,
for
please.
example, if you grow up in a very affluent family or life, let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm taking one extreme, right? So like affluent meaning, let me Kardashian type, right? You
Mm-hmm.
grew up in all of that lavishness. Things have kind of just been pretty much good for you from making living and money and all of that. Automatically, that's going to carry over into your work, right? Because certain doors are already automatically opened for you. So there's certain frustrations that other types of people are balancing in their everyday life that you don't have to balance, right? So the type of life that you started off with has set you up to have better, more seamless work. let me not even say better, let me say more seamless work, which
Mm-hmm.
automatically gives you less to have to juggle and balance, right? So makes that like work life balance easier. And also, you also have more help, right? So as compared to Kardashians versus, I don't know, let me use myself as an example. If I were to have a family and kids, I'm probably not going to have like stay home nannies. And I mean, the dream is to get to the point in my life where I can have all of that. But speaking from right now, I can't do all of that. And so if I were to have kids now and balance that with my work, that's another thing that I have to juggle versus somebody who already has that accounted for or catered for, doesn't have to juggle that. And then let's flip to the other extreme. So let's say you grew up in not so great situations, because I think there's extremes, there's the middle ground, and most people fall in the middle ground, right? Because I think you and myself, like, we fall in the middle ground where it's like we weren't super affluent, but like our parents also made us comfortable, which like we ultimately very much appreciate. But also know that if you kind of grew up in a situation where things were very, very tough, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
tough meaning even being able to focus in like high school was
Mm-hmm.
difficult because you were thinking of all the struggles happening at home. Their limits automatically set and there are hurdles that you have to jump over that the other person might not have to. So you see how you're already balancing way more and you have more challenges because from a very young age you have the hurdles of getting through school with good
Mm-hmm.
grades, and then from school you're thinking about like high school, you're thinking about college, how do you afford that? Even when you're in college, like you have to balance work because you probably have to pay for school and like other obstacles, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
do think the type of life in that extreme has kind of already set you up to have challenges through work because you're balancing way more and it becomes much harder. So unfortunately, and I think we've spoken about this, like life is just unfair like that for reasons that I can't explain. Like I really don't understand it. But I do think like with the whole aspect of work life balance is very challenging because you can be set up for a nice balance from the get-go,
Mm-hmm.
and for whatever reason, and for another reason somebody else might be set up for a much more challenging balance, and it's just
I
what it is.
definitely agree. I definitely agree. Those were some there are some really good points. I definitely agree. Because if you deep it,
Hmm.
where you're born or what you're born into literally determines like the first maybe 10, 15 years of your
Hmm.
life till you can actively decide to change that. You understand what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
But like, what happens between those first 15 years? And if you're unlucky, hmm, if you're really, really unlucky, you might be further down than, like, I feel bad for saying this, but you might be irredeemable in terms of like maybe character, or you understand what I mean? Because those are your formative years. And imagine
Hmm.
someone really being character deficient, love deficient, like, yo,
Yeah.
it's just not what you wish on anybody. And
Right.
there are a lot of people in the world that, for in fact majority of the people in the world probably
Yeah.
fall into that category.
Yeah.
So
This
it's
is
it's a
why
very
like
sad, yeah.
it's really sad, and this is why like it's so important to not judge a book by its cover, because even us, like, we're not talking about everything, but like we have our own struggles and you just don't know what anyone is going through. And like, to your point, there are times where the amount of effort that you've had to put in to get yourself out of like generational formative years or generational like hurdles.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know. Like you just don't know. And it's kind of sad, and I hate to sound so morbid, but it's kind of sad because it's like, you know, yeah, you just don't know what people are going through. You don't know what people are juggling, what people are balancing in all types of
And this has even
situations.
now become so emotional for me, just deep in everything. So
Yeah. Yeah. No,
I
I
don't know if I
mean,
want to keep talking about this.
I think overall, like, to wrap this up, and the reason why I was happy we're talking about this is because, like, I definitely know I struggled this year with like finding a balance because I
Mm.
felt it in my health, like
Hmm.
heavy, and other parts of my life. But that's just my situation, and I know that this period in my life was very unique from me from other periods because it was kind of a, this is the work you're doing for the greater goods, and like I'm trying to set myself up for a better future, set myself
Hmm.
up for not just for myself, like my family, my kids, like things like that.
Hmm.
And I went through my own struggle, but I also don't know people struggle, and I know people are going through different things, and ultimately, like, whoever is listening to this, it's kind of a, it's more so just like us sharing and saying it's normal
Hmm.
to like struggle through the work life situation, because ultimately we need money in this life to survive, but money is just a minute piece of the entire puzzle that is life for everyone, and everyone has different pieces. And how you juggle it is going to be different one day from another day, and just know that that's
Hmm.
okay.
Hmm.
And also know that, like, no one problem is unique. Whatever you're going through, this doesn't help the situation at all, but
Hmm.
somebody else is going through it, so you're not alone, right? Like,
Mm.
I'm not saying somebody else is going through it just to make it seem like you're not the only one, but it's just to make you people, for people to know, even myself, it helps to know that, like, I'm not alone in this, and like this situation is, like, the world is not purposefully picking on me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And on that note, I think we have come to the end of another episode
Yeah.
of the Adult Puzzle Podcast. And we hope you enjoyed it. We hope that the conversations in this space are really impacting because more than anything else, we really wanted to have conversations that are relatable and they're
Hmm.
really impacting in people's lives. So,
And just
um,
real.
uh,
Like, we don't
and
have
just
the,
real, right? Yeah,
yeah,
because
we
we are
don't have the
sharing our
solutions. Yeah.
exactly. Because most of the time, you guys are probably just our wall where we sound off on,
Yeah.
we're not providing solutions like they said, but just talking about it openly with
Yeah.
you guys is kind of freeing for us.
Hmm.
And we hope an ideal situation would be that these conversations continue in your homes, in your offices,
Hmm.
stuff like
Right.
that. It doesn't end here at the podcast. Just to really get everyone thinking and questioning what is normal and what
Hmm.
isn't. So thank you guys
Yeah.
for rocking with us. Please share, please like, please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. And yeah, till we come your way again, same time, same place next
Next
week. It's
week.
bye bye from us.
Bye.